In this video, we'll be looking at data visualization, an area that has come to particular prominence in recent years. I'm Mark Pegram, and I'll be taking you through this material. Here's the usual copyright notice that you see at the start of all the online videos. Now, let's get started. Like digital storytelling, data visualization is really a technique rather than a single tool. It often involves large data sets which have come to be called big data, and we can make use of numerous different Web 2.0 tools and mobile apps to visualize the patterns in that data. Here's a good example of a static data visualization, looking at the tweets made around the time of the Egyptian Revolution a few years ago. Those shown in red were in Arabic. Those shown in blue were in English. The point that comes through very clearly in this data visualization is that there was not much connection between them. In other words, Arabic speakers were talking to other Arabic speakers, and English speakers were talking to other English speakers. That information, that insight, comes through very clearly because of the way that this particular data visualization has been constructed. Here's a more recent example of a static data visualization. The event it refers to is the bombing of a United Nations school in the Gaza Strip in Palestine in 2014. What you can see here is reports by major media organizations on Twitter. As you can see, they fall into two major groups representing different points of view with few connections between them. The lack of connection between different points of view is shown even more starkly in this data visualization, which is based on the occurrence of hashtags on Instagram posts referring to the same event. You might like to pause the video and have a close look at this data visualization. Data visualizations can also be dynamic, which means that they often take the form of videos. There are lots of examples of these on YouTube. If you'd like to look at a particularly good example, you might like to pause this video and go to the address at the bottom of the screen. This is another data visualization working with big data taken from Twitter. This time, what is being visualized is the changing moods of people in the US across the course of the day. Finally, data visualizations can also be interactive. If you'd like to get an idea of how one of these might work, feel free to pause the video and have a look at this very sophisticated example from the Guardian newspaper in the UK. It's called The Path of Protest, and it looks at some of the events that made up the Arab Spring. Data visualizations can make very good stimulus materials for lessons. There are a number of places that you can get them. One of the best sources of data visualizations that I've come across is this Pinterest board by Mashable, simply entitled Infographics. You'll find data visualizations here on almost any subject you could imagine. These sorts of data visualizations which combine text and images are typically referred to as infographics, and we're seeing more and more of them beginning to appear in newspapers, in magazines, on TV, and in other locations. It's therefore very important for students to learn how to read and interpret them. Of course, the educational potential is much greater when students get actively involved in making their own data visualizations. This process also helps them to understand the mechanics behind data visualizations, and that in turn can be very helpful when they're interpreting infographics that they come across in the media and other locations. Traditionally, making infographics was very difficult because you needed two things. You needed large data sets which you could manipulate, and then you needed presentation formats. However, there are now a number of services around which provide both the data and the presentation formats in the form of templates. These make it very easy for anyone to create their own data visualizations or infographics. One company which is doing quite a lot of work in this space is Google. With its Books Ngram Viewer, it allows you to compare the incidence of two or more terms in all of the literature it has digitized between 1800 and 2000. So you can see in this particular case, I have compared the two terms science and religion. You can see that the term religion, represented by the red line, was originally mentioned far more often than the term science. They crossed over sometime around the 1930s, and since then the relative incidence of religion has declined slowly as the relative incidence of science has increased slowly. Here's another much more sophisticated site from Google. Here, Google has pulled together a lot of publicly available data from international organizations, NGOs, and governments. Google also provides a variety of different templates that you can use to represent the data. So there's a huge amount that you can do with this data to explore it, to reveal different trends, and to highlight particular themes. Another site well worth checking out is Better World Flux, which uses World Bank data and gives users all kinds of options for viewing that data in different ways, and again, revealing particular patterns and highlighting particular themes. You might like to pause this video and go to the address at the bottom of the screen in order to watch Better World Flux's introductory video. In situations where students already have their own data or are going to research and find data, it's possible to go straight to a template site. There are a few of these around which allow students to create very nice infographics. Easily written .ly is one of them. Another site which has been used in a number of schools is this one, Piktochart. Again, it's all about giving students templates through which they can present their own data. Here's an example of a simple but effective cyberbullying infographic created with Piktochart by a pre-service teacher and incorporated into an e-portfolio in 2016. Not that you necessarily have to use Easily or Piktochart for data visualization. Here's an example of the use of Piktochart by an early childhood teacher I worked with in Hong Kong in 2014. She has simply used one of the Piktochart templates to present the learning of her students. And here's another pre-service teacher who has used Piktochart as a way of representing a PLN, that is a personal learning network or a professional learning network. It has then been incorporated into an e-portfolio. Apart from Easily and Piktochart, another service which has recently become very popular with educators is the multimedia design service Canva. Canva now has a whole section of education infographic templates which teachers and students can make use of. If you wish to invite your students to create data visualizations that are a little more dynamic and even interactive, you might want to suggest that they visit the Infogram site, written .am, as you can see on the screen. So, pulling all of this together, we've seen that data visualization is about revealing patterns which exist in the data, or about selecting and highlighting particular patterns that you want people to notice. It's important for students to understand that it's possible to do this. That will help them to interpret the infographics that they see in the media and other locations. Data visualization ultimately is about multimedia presentation of information, which can be static, such as images, charts, or infographics, or dynamic, such as video and interactive animations. Traditionally, the difficulty with data visualization has been locating and manipulating data sets, But as we've seen, a number of services now make it very easy to access different kinds of public data and to manipulate and present that data through templates. For more information about data visualization, including a summary of the key points we've covered, links to good examples, and links to places where you can create data visualizations, please feel free to see the data visualization page of the Digital Learning website. You can see the address on the screen.